Welcome to the AZ Political Podcast. I'm Jim Sharp, and James Earl Carter Jr., the 39th President of the United States, was memorialized this week in Washington after passing away at the age of 100. As I pointed out on my Sharper Point commentary on Arizona's Morning News, he may not be one of the greatest presidents of all time, but led by his faith and his commitment to our nation as a naval officer and a public servant and a humanitarian, he certainly was one of the greatest men to ever be president. Headline number 2. Since 1998, state senators and state representatives have been paid $24,000 a year. But State Senator John Kavanaugh wants to change that and give voters an opportunity to decide if he and his colleagues deserve a raise. So the Republican from Fountain Hills is actually proposing a ballot measure that, if approved, would annually increase legislative salaries based on inflation. Kind of like what we do with Arizona's minimum wage, but I hope that, unlike Arizona's minimum wage, legislative pay will not go to an hourly rate, because that would be a terrible incentive for the legislature to go way over in their session and keep us all in harm's way. And headline number 3, last week, newly elected Arizona Democratic U.S. Senator Ruben Gallego said he'd support some of Donald Trump's immigration plans, including deporting, and I'm quoting him here, certain types of illegal immigrants. We got clarification on what types this week when Gallego co-sponsored the Laken-Riley Act, which would require Immigration and Customs Enforcement to detain undocumented migrants who commit theft-related crimes. Now, let's get to my guest on the AZ Political Podcast, which is John Giles, the immediate past mayor of Arizona's 3rd and America's 37th largest city, Mesa. Before his successor, Mark Freeman, was sworn in this week. Mr. Giles served as Mesa's mayor since 2014. He's a native of that city, and he is a lawyer. Welcome to the AZ Political Podcast.
Thanks for the invite, Jim. Good to be with you.
Yeah, thank you for coming down. Let's start with the lawyer part. Some people may know or even assume that you're a lawyer because, well, a lot of people in politics, they're in the law, but they might not know what kind of lawyer you are. Sure. Would you like to fill us in?
Well, I practiced litigation for 25 years, and then when I was confronted with the potential to do this mayor's gig, I kind of set it aside. So I remain an active member of the Arizona Bar. I pay my dues. I do my continuing education. My biggest tie, frankly, to the legal profession for the past several years is I've been serving as an adjunct professor at the ASU Law School, teaching state and local government.
Okay.
So I have continued to keep my fingers in the law, and now that I've got my professional life is changing, I suspect I'll pick that back up and continue again to practice some law. But I'd like to also continue to be engaged in some of these really compelling and fun issues that I've been involved with as the mayor. So it's kind of TBD to see how much trouble I'll be causing as a lawyer. It'll depend on what the opportunities are to continue to be involved in some of these other issues.
If you were to pick one issue that you tackled as mayor of Mesa that you could continue on advocating for in the future, what one issue would that be?
Well, I'm the son of a school principal, and most of my life I thought I wanted to be a school principal, and all of my family are school teachers and school principals. So I kind of brought that passion for education to the job of mayor, and tried to. The city government is not in the education business,
right.
But we are in the supporting education business, and so I tried to prioritize that and to be a good partner with we have 3 K-12 districts that serve the city of Mesa. We've got some great higher education institutions, Benedictine University, Mesa Community College, ASU Poly, ASU Downtown, and others. And so I always try to do my best to be the wind beneath the wings, for the education providers in our city. So I'd love to continue to do that in some way. I'm not sure what those opportunities might be. But then there's also just a lot of economic development that as you know, has occurred in Mesa. And some of that, for example, here in the last few months, we started as a city to look seriously at the possibility of Major League Soccer coming to Mesa. And I think that would be a huge thing for the Valley. If you talk to other, big metro areas, I've been to visit other mayors, and these are mayors with NFL and NBA teams, and all they can talk about is MLS.
Yeah.
Because it's just such an amazing fan experience.
Well, it's such a growing sport.
Absolutely. And it's just bizarre that the Phoenix Metro doesn't have a team. And so I think, and the other coincidence is that Mesa's got two amazing sites that would be perfect, for an MLS franchise to be a home for. So I don't know if there's a role for me to play in that, but I'm a cheerleader on that topic. Would love to see that happen. I think that would be very transformational for Mesa.
It would. I'm just spitballing here, but it would seem it would have to be a domed soccer stadium because playing in the summer, those guys run miles and miles every game.
Well, a lot of these stadiums are for both MLS men, and then there's also a women's league. So it would give a really well used stadium. But you're right. The time of the season in Arizona would require that it would be a dome stadium.
Yeah, and then maybe you could go to the other side and help bring back the Coyotes too. That'd be nice.
Well, supervisor, the chairman of the county supervisors, Mr. Galvin, he's announced that he's going to have a panel to pursue that, and he's invited me to be a part of that. So,
good.
So that is one thing that I'll be involved in for sure.
Very good. All right. So let's talk about Mesa because it has changed a lot. I'm really loath to say this, but a friend of mine about 20 years ago used this term, and I laughed when I heard it. He said, "Oh, you're talking about Mesuck?" I'm like, "No, not Mesa." But the downtown is so different than it used to be. I mean, there's so much going on in Mesa. Tell me about the things you think that you did to leave Mesa a better place from the time you became mayor until you left the mayor's role, and then maybe also touch on a couple things you might have been able to do better.
Sure. Well, let's start with downtown since you bring that up. I was born in downtown Mesa. I was born in the building that is now Benedictine University.
Oh, okay.
I grew up just on the other side of University, so I remember as a child how amazing downtown Mesa was. I mean, the cars were double parked and the sidewalks were wall-to-wall people. Yeah. I mean, it was amazing. And that the bones of that economic engine are still there. I mean, and it's even cooler, even more authentic. You've got these 150-year-old buildings with a lot of character.
500,000 people?
Yes, 500,000 people. And now people are, with the addition of the light rail and with ASU and the Performing Arts Center, people want to live in downtown Mesa because there's a lot of wonderful amenities there. The nightlife is, with the restaurants, the entertainment districts, lots of breweries, lots of cideries. I mean, it's a great place to live. So that's been it's all. And so to answer your question, when I came on the scene 10 years ago, everyone kept talking about, wow, downtown Mesa has got great bones. It's got great potential. And I don't think any of us are particularly excited about being complimented on our bones or our potential, right? I mean,
maybe bone structure. I don't know. Yeah.
So, but it was a little frustrating in that, you guys could actually be really neat, you know? And so I feel one thing I'm really gratified about is that people don't talk about our potential in downtown anymore. They come like you, they said, wow, I hadn't been there for a while, and I took a look and was blown away. So that's been a lot of fun. And that is, I'd say downtown Mesa is an overnight sensation that was decades in the making. Because I was on our city council back in the 1990s, and I remember, and it was dead as a doornail back then. Yeah. And between the shopping malls and the freeways, it just kind of sucked the life out of downtown Mesa. And so the city began investing decades ago with the Mesa Arts Center, with the decision to bring light rail, with the decision to partner with ASU, and a lot of other things. And so some people might think it happened, like that, but no, it happened. We built things upon things upon things that have resulted in kind of resurrecting what has always been a really special place.
Well, it's interesting. It did feel like, for me, I'm a North Valley guy, and I grew up in northern Arizona, and I'd come down to the valley, and I remember guys sitting on Main Street in their pickups,
Sure.
in their pickup beds, and they got like the beach lounger in the back, and I'd always contrast that with Metro Center where the lowriders were driving around. I'm like, this is the valley for you.
When I was in high school, we would drag Maine. That's what we did.
Right,
and
right.
So, it was a little more exciting. I mean, there was still a pulse there.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing wrong with dragging Maine. That's cool.
Yeah,
we would love
absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
But now there's more reasons to stop when you're dragging Maine.
But my daughter was in a play that was at the Arts Center.
Yeah.
And I took her out there, and I was like, wow. First off, the Arts Center is beautiful.
It's
really
world class.
It is a beautiful, beautiful facility.
A few years ago, the Mesa Arts Center won an award as Venue of the Year. The runner-up was the Sydney Opera House.
Wow.
So, I mean, that just...
Sydney Opera House.
I'm not exaggerating. It truly is a world-class facility.
It is.
Yeah.
It is really beautiful. I can attest to that. But then that's kind of when I was like, whoa,
That's right.
This is Mesa,
Right.
So that's really. So what do you feel like you might have been able to do a little better in your 10 years as mayor?
That's a great question. I'm sure. It was a growing process for me. I felt like I was running from one thing to the other for the entire 10 years. With the exception of the COVID experience.
Right.
And COVID was a great learning experience for Mesa. I think we came out of that stronger. It helped us see things that we knew were issues, but to see them in a more focused way, and it forced us to come up with ways to respond to some of the housing insecurity and food insecurity issues that we have as a community. So thank goodness we learned from that experience, and I learned from my over the course of 10 years. I mean, there were some things that were successful. There's some things that were not. About 2 years into being mayor, I put on the ballot an increase in the sales tax in order to pay for a huge list of things, new police officers and fire stations, and also a significant ASU campus in our downtown. Mm-hmm. And that the voters said, no, thank you. We don't want to raise our sales tax. And so, but I don't, was that a mistake? Do I regret doing it? No. I learned a lot from that, and our community learned a lot from that. It helped us prioritize what was important, and we figured out ways to do things in a more affordable way that were important. But I'm not sure I would call that something that a mistake that I wouldn't do over again. But it was a learning experience. Yeah. And then, but for the most part, the voters of Mesa have been extremely supportive of what we've done. This last election in November, we had 4 issues on the ballot. They all passed by over 70%, and including hundreds of millions of dollars in bonds and increasing the city's capacity to spend money. So the voters have been, the people of Mesa want good things. They want to have a strong local government.
This is the AZ Political Podcast, after all. Yeah. How has Mesa changed politically? Because, you said when, 2 years into your 10-year run as mayor, they shot you down on a sales increase, and now 4 bonds passed, or 4 propositions passed, and people are willing to spend more money. Has it become a more moderate city? I mean, it's known, that's Andy Biggs' district. It's known as a, rock hard, red district.
And that's true. Particularly in certain parts of Mesa. Mesa it's hard to paint Mesa with too broad a brush, because it literally is a city of 530,000 people over 150 square miles, and so that's one thing I think people sometimes forget about Mesa is how big it is. Yeah. You mentioned we're the 3rd largest city in the state. A decade from now we'll be the 2nd largest city in the state, and we are between 35th and 37th largest in the United States. We're going to continue to grow. If people tell me they want to go out and find a certain type of cuisine or a certain type of neighborhood or a certain type of job, all of the, anything you can imagine, you can find in the city of Mesa. It's a big city.
By the way, I have to just say this: surpassing Tucson is not really much of an accomplishment, but I have to throw that in there. I'm sorry. I just
and it's not like it's not really a competition. I'm just saying Mesa is bigger than. Sometimes you forget. Sometimes I joke and say in Mesa we're proud of our humility, because we're not great about bragging or about running to the front of the parade.
Right.
We just kind of put our heads down, try to do a good job, and people have started to notice that. So to answer your question, though, yes, Mesa continues to be politically conservative, and you continue to see conservative politicians get elected in Mesa, but that's not true all over the city. There are some legislative districts in Mesa that are entirely Democratic. So I think the people of Mesa, what this last election showed me, look at the results of the last election. You had an abortion constitutional amendment passed. You had a Democratic U.S. senator elected. You had a very conservative Republican presidential. The results were across the board, and that was true in Mesa as well. So I think what is true about Mesa is that you have to explain to the voters what you want and why you want it, and if it's a good idea, they'll support it.
Let's talk about that election. You and I talked at the Democratic National Convention when you were there, and you're a Republican, and a lot of people are like, well, what's he doing at the DNC? And it was because you had decided to endorse the Democrat, Kamala Harris, over the Republican, Donald Trump. I will be the 1,000,000th and first person to ask, now that the election's over, do you regret that in any way, shape, or form?
No, I don't. That was an interesting journey for me to go on. I was mayor for 10 years. For the first 8 years, I did everything I possibly could to avoid getting entangled in partisan politics. Right. Because I thought why do that?
And technically, it's a nonpartisan election in Mesa.
Yes. No. When I went for city elections, you don't run as an R or a D. You just put your name on the ballot, and that's frankly, that's what makes a local government such a joy to participate in. It's when you sit down at a city council meeting, you don't have it us against them. It's we're very collaborative, and there are on my council I had conservative Republicans and very progressive Democrats, and we got along very, very well, and we did a lot of good things together because we just focused on in between the 40-yard lines. So there's so much to do. Why engage in the things that we might disagree on? So that's what's great about city government, and I hope that we continue to protect the nonpartisan character of city government. So why then would someone in that position engage in partisan politics? Why? Yes, well, and it's a great question, and it's a question that for most of my service, I decided I don't want to do that. But at some point, it became clear to me that some of the candidates in my party, were they elected, would be damaging to my city government. Let's go 2 years back when Kerry Lake and a fairly extreme candidate, Blake Masters, was the Senate candidate. Those two candidates had already kind of established a coalition with the Tea Party folks in the legislature that have, frankly, a very anti-city agenda. And I could tell that were they elected, that it would be detrimental to the best interests of my city. So it wasn't really a partisan decision. It wasn't, I'm a Republican, but I'm going to support the Democrats. It was, I'm a mayor, and I'm going to support the candidates that are best for my city. Okay. And is that how you felt about Donald Trump and Kamala Harris? It is. Okay. I went through, I started my term under President Obama. I was there for the whole time of President Trump. We got along just fine. I had the opportunity to meet with him a couple of times, but for the most part, cities were kind of left out in the cold during the first Trump administration, and I had a great experience working with the Biden-Harris administration as a result of the CHIPS Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act and other legislation. We saw amazing support as far as federal investment in infrastructure in our city, and so I felt again that silence was not an option, that I needed to, on behalf of my city, let people know that I thought it was in the best interest of our city to go with the vice presidents. And then just on a basic level, I had some issues with the integrity and the ethics of the former president. So let's talk a little bit more about the former president. Not that you can peer into his mind or Barack Obama's mind, but I mentioned Jimmy Carter's memorial earlier, and one of the things I saw while I was watching this, everybody getting seated at the National Cathedral, was Donald Trump and Barack Obama talking up a storm, and they were sharing laughs, and it went on for 6, 7, 8, maybe even 10 minutes. So
like I said, you can't peer into their minds, but should the average American take that as these guys are just play acting when it's election time? Otherwise, they really do get along. And, Donald Trump just played up the whole birther thing to help him get into office. And Barack Obama didn't really think that the Russians were involved in Trump's campaign. And how do you take that?
I think all of the above is true. I think they genuinely don't like each other, but I do think that they both play to the camera a little bit. I mean, I think Donald Trump is not quite the cartoonish character that he appears, in the film clips that you see on MSNBC. I think he is a more rational human being than that. And I think Barack Obama is, in like fashion, is charming and engaging, on a personal level, and I'm not surprised at all to hear that they had a great conversation. I think that's wonderful. I would love to see more of that happen. We need. We're in such a polarized environment right now politically. I'm excited to hear what you saw, and I hope that they can take that from a personal level up to a professional level as well and cooperate a little more.
Yeah. Would you like to see that at the state level, at the municipal level? Or do you feel like that already exists to a certain extent anyway on those levels? Not
as much as it should and not as much as it used to. If you talk to people that have been involved in state and local government 10, 20, 30 years ago, they'll tell you that the temperature was a lot lower and that there was a lot more collaboration and more bipartisanship. So things are getting progressively worse. The legislature, we don't have, frankly, there are no moderates in the legislature anymore. You're either one extreme or the other.
Right.
And that's just a sad commentary. I mean, that makes it difficult to solve problems, because the way that politics is most effective is when people are compromising.
So you said probably not back to full-time law practice. Based on what you just said, do you think it's your obligation to seek public office again to try and foster these kind of feelings? Or is John Giles just done with politics?
I think I'm just done with politics, partly. I mean, I still obviously am. I'd love to continue to serve my community, but I mean, there's a lot of ways to do that other than in elected office, and some of them, frankly, might be as or more impactful than elected office. But to answer your question, I think I might also, frankly, be unelectable because I've kind of burned bridges, in the Republican Party, and so I don't think I could win an election for dog catcher in a Republican primary, which is fine with me.
There's state mine inspector. You can do that,
Is that nonpartisan? Maybe?
Yeah, no, I don't think it is. I think
there's
R's and D's next to the names,
So as a practical matter, I think I've done myself the favor of like I say, burning my political bridges as far as partisan politics goes. But I do look forward to continuing to be engaged, particularly in some of these issues that I thought were so rewarding to be involved in as mayor.
Well, I hope you stay in the public eye in some way, shape, or form. I really do.
Thank you.
And if you choose to not go the political route, I completely understand, too. And we all have to protect our sanity, right?
Amen.
Yeah. All right. Once again, the past immediate former mayor of Mesa, Arizona, John Giles, here on the AZ Political Podcast. I'm Jim Sharp, and we'll see you soon.